Here we go from the New York Post. Trump blasts Biden as total moron before crowd of 100,000 at New Jersey rally. Whole world is laughing at him. I had to choose the news source that not only referenced the 100,000 number, but also insulted Joe Biden, because we are very biased here at Timcast. We like Trump. We don't like Biden. Donald Trump recited all his greatest hits at a massive Saturday evening rally in Wildwood, New Jersey, but managed to avoid violating his court-imposed gag order by focusing on President Biden, whom he called a total moron, and blamed for his web of legal troubles. Trump, wearing his typical blue shirt, blue suit, blood red tie, and Make America Great Again cap, railed about inflation, offshore windmills, electric cars, the press, and Chris Christie. But unsurprisingly, it was Biden who drew the most intense vitriol. Take a look at some of these photos. Absolutely insane. This is potentially one of the biggest rallies ever in U.S. history. It is believed to be the biggest for a Republican, and we're not sure. It may rival Obama's St. Louis rally of 100,000. So, I mean, this is massive. What I will say is we're getting all of these signs and signals that Donald Trump is on track to win bigly. The question is, I'd imagine that there's going to be some sort of shadow campaign. And, I'm not so sure that we should just sit here and rest on our laurels just yet.
I think that's the problem with a lot of Republican voters, right? They're easy to say, like, Joe Biden's are so bad and inflation's awful. Of course Trump is going to win, but the reality is that you have to go to the polls, right? And the other part is that, if you had a Trump presidency, if you're really looking to see the reawakening of conservative values or America First values in this country, you would need to also support, those beliefs and policies down ticket. So you have to be able to vote for Senate, Congress, everyone in your local level. It's so easy during a presidential election year to just say, like, oh, yes, these two guys are running, when actually, you're the best person to talk about this.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it.
Now, look, this is an inflection point in this country. It really makes a huge difference what the outcome of this election. There's no doubt about it. If you think that things are bad now, think if you had another 4 years of Joe Biden and how bad that would be. Imagine just in the time that we're living in right now, 3 years of Joe Biden tanked the economy, inflation's off the charts. You have to go out and vote if we're going to get this country back. It's the only way to save this country is for Joe Biden to be defeated in this upcoming election. It's a huge, huge election. I know everyone's always like, this is the biggest election of our lifetime. I am serious. You have seen this thing on hyperdrive. The left's agenda over this last 3 years, trillions of dollars of debt, inflation, all of it piled up. We're potentially looking at 3 wars now. Go out and vote. Please, people, be politically engaged, because they're going to do everything they can on their side to try to make this thing difficult for us.
I think that's why you see the hyperfixation on abortion, on these issues that are not getting the same attention that the mainstream everyday kitchen table issues have, right? Like how much your grocery bill is really makes a difference to the voter. Being able to say, well, I was the president who, my vice president toured an abortion facility. I feel like the Democrats are already campaigning uphill because the economy is so bad and that's such a number one issue. But on top of that, the things that they are alternatively trying to direct to aren't as motivating in terms of getting voter turnout as, some other issues.
I thought it was interesting. One of his openers was North Carolina Governor Doug Burgum. Doug Burgum. North Dakota, rather. So I don't know if I'm reading into that too much. It would be an interesting VP pick because I know there's been whispers about that.
Yeah, no, there has been whispers about that, but to me, I think the person who makes the most sense to be the VP nomination for Donald Trump is J.D. Vance, Senator J.D. Vance out of Ohio. If we want to continue this America First movement in this country, Senator J.D. Vance is the person for that job. J.D. Vance makes the most sense to me. I don't think you need a milquetoast VP nominee in this process. You don't need just a filler. We need a succession plan.
If he picked J.D. Vance, I think that would be a huge signal to what his policy goals would be in this second administration. However, I don't know if he'd feel comfortable having somebody like a J.D. Vance, because I think if J.D. was VP, then he'd want to run for president next time. And I don't think Trump wants somebody under him who could potentially like vie for his spot after. What do you think about that?
J.D. Vance was in New York today at the trial.
Yes.
I mean, he was sort of advocating the way that a second in command would. And this is one of the interesting things about the Trump election, right? Which is like tomorrow Vivek's going to be there too. So there are all these people sort of saying like, look, if you need someone, here's what I would look like as a potential second in command.
It's the tryouts, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, look, JD is somebody who comes from that working class background. Everybody's kind of familiar with him and his book, Hillbilly Elegy, and all of that. This party now is shifting to this party of the working class. Axios just put out an article, I think it was yesterday, talking about Latino working class voters are now shifting to the Republican column, as well as black working class voters. And we're seeing that obviously among white working class voters and specifically labor unions. That's also happening as well. They're voting for Trump. Trump in the last one got 40% of the labor union vote. They're moving in our direction. JD captures that. And I think he plays well in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. He's from Southern Ohio. Obviously, we're going to win Ohio anyway. But point being, look, Trump has one term here that he's going to do. We have to have a succession plan because there is going to be an Empire Strikes Back moment where the establishment and the neocons are going to try to take it back.
They're gonna try to bring in it'll be a pseudo MAGA candidate, someone you think will they'll try and fit into the MAGA mold, but slowly drift into uniparty mold, or at the very least get elected and then go full uniparty.
Was Nikki Haley the only person he officially ruled out?
Yeah.
Was that? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's for sure not going to be Nikki Haley.
And I just want to mention too, we're getting like cell phone interference and everyone's phones are in airplane mode. And I know that people are hearing the crackling and I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Everybody's in airplane mode and it just keeps happening. So that's never happened before. But you know what I think the issue is? We're in a Faraday cage. We're in a...
What does that mean?
So a Faraday cage is like a gigantic metal box that absorbs electromagnetic frequencies.
Okay.
And so the building we're in is not a legitimate Faraday cage, but it basically acts like one because your phone doesn't work inside the building. And but it does a little bit. So I think what may be happening is that in the room, the phones, when the signal gets weak, it blasts. It gets
It searches harder for the
yeah,
signal.
and the phone gets
Yeah.
hot. So that's why we're hearing that crackling. But I don't know. Everyone's in airplane mode. We'll see what happens.
I'm in airplane mode.
Yeah.
So now we all get to stay completely focused on
Yes.
Anyway, there's going to be a fake MAGA candidate, and the scary thing is you won't see it coming. It's the only move, and I don't know what the defense is against it, right? There's a big backbench for Republicans, and you're going to get a candidate who says all the right things and seems to be like Trump in a lot of ways, but better. Yes, Bannon said that, you ain't seen nothing yet. Donald Trump's the moderate. Donald Trump is actually still warm to many establishment players trying to play ball. And imagine what it would be like if Steve Bannon was president. I mean, he's way more America First, more MAGA than Trump is. Trump actually seems to be trying to still stay within color within the lines or whatever. I think we may end up with somebody who says all the right things, gets in, and then, I don't know, nukes a foreign country or something.
Yeah.
I think it's always possible. For me, the best way to deter against a potential, usurper of the MAGA legacy would be if there was a clear understanding of what the future momentum of the MAGA movement would be, right? Because ultimately, without one defined leader, when Trump can no longer be in office, it's going to inevitably fracture into different interest groups. One of the best things about it right now is there's a cohesive rallying point. And even with all the trials and everything that he's in, ultimately people look to Trump as like the way forward through the mess that we are in. And I think people felt that way in 2016, but now given the state that Joe Biden has left the country, it's even more so, right? I mean, I just don't know that it's clear that there is an heir apparent to this. On the other hand, the best thing the voters could do to say, these are the issues, like top 3 issues we want moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, with Senator Vance, J.D. Vance, this is a guy who, and whatever you think about this, you have to at least give him credit here. During his election, during his campaign, came out against the U.S. supporting the war in Ukraine. during his election, which was not popular, And he had a lot of guts coming out like that and took the risk because he thought it was the right thing. And that is where it turns out a lot of the electorate is actually. So, I mean, I think that's what you want.
And it is like Trump. I mean, there are a lot of issues that Trump moved forward on in a way that other Republicans have been scared to. I mean, famously saying build the wall. So many Republicans had looked at immigration as this like campaign ending issue, and that's not the case anymore. And you know, there have been people before him talking about immigration, but Trump really brought it to the mainstream in a way that sort of similarly you can see that kind of boldness in a candidate like Vance when they take stances that maybe especially corporate media are like, do not say that.
I don't want to sound super cynical politically, but it's so interesting when you zoom out for a second and you see who the possibilities are for VP, Marco Rubio, JD Vance. These guys were all at one point never Trumpers, and they did a full 180 now and are managing to be on his kind of short list for VP. I think it's, from a zoomed out 10-year perspective, it's easy how quickly politics can change.
Did you say who you would want to see as VP?
I think he should try to unify the party. So I think he should pick the only person he said that he wouldn't.
Who?
Nikki Haley. I think Nikki Haley would be a great pick, and it would also unify the Republican Party.
No, he's a Haley
fan. It would be a great pick. Also, I don't think Nikki Haley's very threatening to Trump. Like, I don't think Trump wants a VP who he views as somebody who could be his possible successor. He doesn't want to have to be concerned.
Could you pick a VP that you called Bird Brain, though? I mean, that's rough.
I think he said horrible things about Marco Rubio, and he's still on the short list.
He can't pick Nikki Haley because then I owe Will Chamberlain $4,000.
It's a small amount to pay to have somebody so hawkish and.
We did it.
Serge, she looks so happy.
Will and I did a charity bet. Will Chamberlain, because he was saying, look, he's going to pick Haley. Like, that makes a lot of sense. It does, like you said, unify the party. It gets a lot of the establishment players, Bush donors, to play ball with Trump. And I said, no way it's going to happen. So he challenged me. We did a charity bet. But he recently tweeted at me. I just got to reach out. He said, Trump truthed. Nikki Haley is not under consideration.
Yes.
And Will said, looks like you've won this one. Name the charity. And so we'll figure it out. But I don't think it's fair to say the charity bet is over, because just because Trump said she's not under consideration doesn't mean it's not the case. And we're all hoping it's not the case. We're hoping he's serious when he says no to Nikki Haley.
Yeah, and look, JD Vance, and obviously had comments at one point, and Marco Rubio being never Trumpers at that time. But look, I'm a Christian. I believe in redemption. I believe in salvation and people coming to the light, and they found the light, and that's good. I'm not into cancel culture and saying, well, they said this, that. Not saying you're not, but we get that sometimes with Republicans where it's like, oh, well, they said this I don't care what they said a long time ago. They're where they need to be now. And I think JD's been a great advocate for the America First movement.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.